Looking for Brooks in the corner. Got it! Touchdown, Alabama!
Me and B-Rob are super close. Lockers right next to each other, so I get to see him. I get to be around him all the time, and then obviously on the field. But B-Rob's someone I've been cool with since I first got here. Someone who's from Tuscaloosa, who has been in the program for a while. And when I first got here, he was someone who was always super cool with me. Someone who was super welcoming when I was just a freshman. That means a lot to me. For him, last year being here as long as he did, he didn't have to, go out of his way to make sure I was good and to look out for me as just a freshman. But he made a priority to do that, and that's always meant a lot for me. Not just in football but in life.
It means everything is so much fun. I have to give those guys a lot of credit because they give me so much energy when I watch them play. Before the game, I swear I always say to myself, I said, your brother's out there with you. Look at Phil, he right there beside you. Look at DJ, he right there beside you. Look at Dallas, he right there beside you. So we straight no matter what, and that kind of gives me a little bit of confidence too.
You're listening to Bama Brigade, on the Sports Flash Media Network.
Tuesday, January 10th, 2023, edition of Bama Brigade on Sports Flash Media Network. I'm Joe Will, joined by my co-host Tyler Chibish and Josh Clackler. Guys, it's been a while. We've done a 3-person show together. It's been several months. Tyler, how you doing?
Good, man. I was in a bit of a scramble to get, already.
A mad panic.
I'll be here at 10 or 7, just running back and forth. But I made it. We're here, and we're all good. I'm excited to get back.
Clack, how you doing?
So that game last night was like a total abomination to all of college football.
Hold on.
We'll get to it.
How are you doing?
I'm good. I mean,
Tyler, before you hopped on here, we were talking about Clack's adventures in Louisiana and New Orleans.
Yeah, it was definitely a great night. Anyway,
have a happy New Year's.
Yeah, it was definitely a good New Year's.
Little New Year's smooch. Got one of those.
No, it's definitely the best place to spend New Year's.
I actually haven't even been to New Orleans. It's on my bucket list to go there, but
it's a nice
New Orleans is a fun city.
It's not cold like Chicago. But yeah, no, what do you guys want to start with? I guess we got to start with the national championship game. Clack is chomping at the bit.
Yeah, Clack didn't even want to answer my question about how he was doing. He was ready to just.
That was an answer, dude. Did you see the game last night? That's how he's doing. He is angry. Yeah. He is ready to rant.
Yeah. Was that not the worst national championship in the history of national championships?
It has to be.
You could have put the FCS champion out there, and they would have given a better game than TCU. South Dakota State literally would have scored double-digit points and held Georgia to under 65 points.
By the way, if any of my family is watching, just want to give a quick shout-out to South Dakota State. My whole mom's side of the family is from South Dakota, so they were over the moon that they finally beat NDSU. I think if I'm correct, it's the first time SDSU's ever won the FCS. So
congratulations,
Jackrabbits.
My girlfriend's one of her law school friends. Her boyfriend plays for the Jackrabbits, so that was pretty cool.
Darn, I was really hoping it was that one lineman, but he plays for NDSU.
No. Oh, I know who you're talking about.
I can't think of his name. I cannot for the life of me think of his name.
The dude with the long hair, looks like a straight up lumberjack.
Yeah.
That had the transformation. Anyways.
But
Cody Mouch.
There's I can name you to 150 teams offhand that would have given Georgia a better game than TCU did last night. It's ridiculous.
TCU looked like a team that saw what everyone was saying and then took it to heart and was like, all right, I guess everyone's saying we have no chance, so we're just not going to try.
Yeah, and I think I didn't expect it. I think up until yesterday, I expected it to be a blowout. I didn't expect it to be 65-7, but I kind of talked myself into, hey, maybe TCU can make things interesting just because, they had been doubted all year from everybody, myself included, but that was definitely not the case. 65-7, though. I mean, this is – I was rooting for TCU. I'm sure you guys were. But after a while, I just kind of wanted to see how many points Georgia could score on them.
Yeah.
Like somebody said on Twitter, it's the Big 12 defense is optional. And you go and compare scores, Vandy was better against Georgia. Freaking Kent State was better. Samford was better. come on, like
Auburn.
what realistically,
Auburn would have put up more of a fight in this game.
Auburn with Cadillac literally would have beaten TCU. Just saying.
I
But like in all seriousness, and I said this on Twitter, and I stand by it. Dude, let's say if TCU's in the SEC, what is their record? I don't think they make a bowl game.
yeah, they're like a mid-tier. They're like a 500 team. I don't even think that's reactionary. I mean, I guess it depends on if they're the SEC East or West. In the West, they're definitely a 500 team.
Like the thing
East,
is, like
there's
Michigan,
like 4 good teams.
you take out that awful first half from JJ McCarthy in Michigan. Michigan blows them out of the water. Michigan dominated the second half. But Michigan's like not a team that plays from behind well. Like you take all that second half, like Michigan should have, would have, could have won that football game. Almost came from down 20-something points.
And you want to go shoulda, woulda, coulda too. Blake Corum, like who's like a Heisman finalist until he got hurt potentially.
And I also think hot take. I think Ohio State was actually better than
the
Michigan.
discussion.
No. I think Blake Corum obviously is a phenomenal player, and he's announced, I think, yesterday that he was coming back. But I mean, Donovan Edwards had 129 all-purpose yards in that game, so it wasn't like they weren't able to run the ball, but they shot themselves in the foot early on in that game, so it was kind of hard for them to come back and win. And they made it interesting. First, was it like the first quarter? Receiver catches the ball, and they say, he's not in, even though it looks like a touchdown. And then the next play, they fumbled it. So they made a lot of mistakes, and I guess it kind of makes the discussion hard because a lot of people, Bama fans specifically, obviously, because we're pissed that we didn't get in, we're saying that the committee made the wrong decision. But then you've got the TCU fans and a lot of other college football fans saying, well, TCU beat Michigan, so how can you say they didn't deserve to be in? So do we think that ultimately the committee made the right decision putting TCU and Ohio State in over Alabama?
No.
Yes, by what the committee's like criteria is, how they rank it. No, by if they actually seriously wanted the 4 best teams.
Yeah.
But you can't like they rank wins so heavily, so I don't think you could leave TCU, whose only losses in their championship game, out over a team that didn't even play in the championship game because they had 2 losses.
Yeah,
even if that team played a much harder schedule.
It's tough though because, like Tyler said, you can't leave them out even if they barely won most of their games this year. The committee would get scrutinized for leaving them out. Like the hard decision would have been putting Alabama in, but the easy decision made the most sense that you could justify would be putting TCU in. As
now
much
you're
as we
getting
hate
scrutinized and you're getting ripped apart way more than you would have if you put Bama in.
Because now you are. Hindsight's 2020.
Right.
I agree, but like you say, the committee's theme is you want the best 4 teams. You want the best 4 teams. There was no way this should have happened, but if you want the best 4 teams, the best 4 teams were Georgia, Michigan because they won the Big Ten, Alabama, Tennessee with Hendon Hooker. That was your best 4 teams.
Yeah, but Tennessee didn't have Hendon Hooker for the last 3 games.
Right, but I'm just saying, but that was the 4 best teams. So you take that out of the equation, though. I guess you put the second Big Ten team in.
The Ohio State, it made sense.
Yeah, and
if you take away that anomaly of a game they had against Michigan, just a terrible game, they basically, the national championship last week was Georgia versus Ohio State. I mean, that was a great game. It was a semifinal. Both the semifinal games were good, but that was basically your national championship game.
Yep.
Yeah, and Ohio State was winning up till like 40 seconds left on the clock too. So like woulda, coulda, shoulda.
Yeah, it kind of.
They put up a fight. I
don't know if you guys. I'm sure you've seen Breaking Bad. Like the Jesse Pinkman meme where he's like, "They can't keep getting away with this."
Yeah,
that's how I feel about Georgia with wide receiver injuries because obviously last year SEC championship game, Jameson Williams went out.
No, Mechie was the SEC championship. JMO got hurt on a big play and then
JMO got hurt.
Yeah, you're right. Anyways, he goes out and then we lose both of them and we beat the crap out of Georgia in the SEC championship game with both those guys. And Tyler likes to play devil's advocate and talk about injuries. Yeah, which is a good point. But then last week against Ohio State, Marvin Harrison Jr. was going off.
Yeah.
And he gets injured. and they lose the game. But I don't know. As much as I don't like the committee's decision to put TCU and Ohio State in over Alabama, it's kind of just the way the playoff. I mean, with 4 teams, that you kind of have one hand tied behind your back when it comes to making these kind of decisions. And so that's why, thankfully, the playoff is expanding, not next year, but the year after, correct?
Yes.
And I saw that people were saying TCU getting blown out is a reason for why we shouldn't expand the playoff, but I actually disagree, because if you have a playoff, you have multiple games. So let's say TCU beats Michigan. Yeah, they go on, but if they're truly a fraudulent team, they're not going to keep winning games. Like, they're not going to play in the national championship.
It's quite literally the opposite of a reason. Like, if a team, say it's 12 teams?
Yeah, 12. Mm-hmm.
So say the 12th seed, for example, gets all the way to the national championship game. They get blown out in that case. I'm way more willing to say that they're not frauds than a team winning one single game and then getting blown out in the national championship game. Right? Like, you won one good game, and all of a sudden your national championship runner-up material didn't win their own conference. Like, I mean,
I don't understand the people that don't want the playoff expanded are going to always find reasons why it shouldn't, and it never makes sense to me why you wouldn't expand it. You get more games, but those people are out there. I'm glad that all 3 of us are on the same page. That could be a pretty heated debate.
The literal only reason I'm even willing to entertain, and I don't think it's a huge issue, would be wear and tear on young athletes' bodies, right? Like, that extra couple of games, really, there's already a bunch of people that get injured by the end of the year. And I get it. And when you break to the NFL, you're going to have to play more games, but that's also with years of NFL strength and conditioning. That's the only one I'm willing to entertain, and even then, I think we'll just start to see maybe more load management type stuff, like take out players sooner when they're up big.
Yeah, against the cupcake teams.
Yeah, exactly.
But I mean, this year just felt like we had a lot more upsets than previous years. 2 upsets in the bowl game. We talked about TCU beating Michigan. How about Tulane beating USC? That was an awesome game. Imagine that being that would have been a playoff game that would have been played. So, I mean, this is why we play these games on the field. We don't play them on paper, because on paper, I mean, how many Alabama was favored in all their games, and we lost to LSU. We were favored by I don't have the exact number, but we were favored by a good bit in that game. We lost.
Yeah.
I mean, so you have to play the games on the field regardless of, how talented one team is compared to another team.
Brother, I can tell you, I hear all about it all year. Following the NFL, because the Packers finished 8-9 with a better advanced stats than the division winning Vikings, and all I've seen on Twitter is oh, they're better than this, and everything but record. And it's at the end of the day, that's why you play the games, because record matters. It matters what you do in the game.
Stetson Bennett, 25 years old. Finally gone. I mean, how do we feel about Stetson Bennett? I want to say that I'm glad that he's gone, but their backup is also pretty good, so it makes me kind of nervous about next year. But how do you guys feel about him before I go into my little spiel?
I mean, you got to give him credit. He ran a decent offense and a great defensive system. I mean, Kirby's. I still think he's a game manager. I don't think he's some guy that's going to go to the NFL and do great things, But, I mean, great defense, benefited from a great defense. He played good enough to get it done. And Todd Monken had done it he did a great job as offensive coordinator. And, got to give him credit. He managed games. He got them wins. And he's a 2-time national champion. I mean. Yeah,
at the end of the day, you can't argue with results, right? And, I don't think anyone outside of Georgia fans are arguing that he's an NFL level athlete. I thought it was ridiculous that he was in the Heisman conversation. He absolutely should not have been. And you see it on the field, right? He still makes some easy mistakes. Half the time he's throwing to wide open receivers, like that one touchdown, or half of his passes. Yeah. Or half of his passes are just contested catches that he's had the, privilege of playing with Brock Bowers or oh my God, George
Pickens, yeah.
Or Pickens, excuse me. Yeah, I was thinking Kenny Pickett. But at the end of the day, like, you can't take anything away from him. He won 2 national championships and had 1 loss in his 2 years as a starter, and that was to Alabama. So,
yeah, I think it kind of just goes back to, obviously, you touched on it, both of you guys. He's not the most talented guy. He'll get drafted, I'm sure. Obviously, maybe mid round. So. You don't think he'll get drafted at all?
I think maybe 7th round.
Maybe 7th.
Yeah.
But that's just a guy that knew that system like the back of his hand. I mean, I've never seen a college quarterback be as average to below average as Stetson Bennett, but just excel the way that he did.
I mean, I wouldn't say he's below average. I mean,
average. We'll call him. I mean,
yeah.
I mean, he's above average, I think, but he's not your Bryce Young, Will Rogers.
Yeah, he's not a star.
Guy, but he's not a bad quarterback.
Will Rogers was your second.
I'm just throwing out other names.
Got Mississippi State.
Speaking of average, Will Rogers.
I mean, he's better than Will Levis. I mean, okay.
Yeah, I don't know.
I would take.
At the end of the day, one of them's going in the first round, and one of them's probably not going to be drafted.
Okay, I get it, but like Will Levis is just an overhyped quarterback.
I will not argue if they're there. I think that's true.
That's a conversation for another day. But I mean, like, I don't get, like, I think he's above average. I mean, he's like your AJ McCarron. I mean, you would consider AJ McCarron above average. He won 2 natties, should have won 3 natties if we make a field goal or what have you. But I mean,
I think AJ McCarron's a good comparison.
Yeah.
I mean, I think he's
Greg
above
McElroy.
average, but he's not great.
Yeah, because he like, don't get what I said wrong. He can make the throws you need him to make. And like occasionally, maybe like once or twice a game, he'll have just an absolute dime. Right? Like against Alabama, he had that one to Jermaine Burton of all people. That one absolute dime in the end zone to Jermaine Burton where Kyrie Jackson got like mossed. And
shocker.
It's just he doesn't need to do more, right? Because Georgia at the end of the day, I mean, and you look at his stats, and his stats are often better than they actually were, right? Because you look at a lot of their plays are like quick screens to the tight end with like 3 guys out in front, and then they get 20 yards. And it's just like, it's too easy. They're so good all around and so physical. And I think that's also, sorry, I was gonna say that's one thing that TCU kind of came to bite them is TCU was hyping themselves up, right? Like going into the Michigan game, oh, Michigan's going to try to out physical us, but we can be as physical as them. And they showed that they could. Georgia's on another level from that, though. Like Georgia just has absolute, no pun intended, dogs at every position. So
I don't know. I'm going to push back on that too. It's not like we talked about Stetson Bennett. They don't have the best quarterback. They don't have the best running backs in the country.
He's better than Max Duggan.
Clack, let me speak. No, I'm fine. No. They don't have the best quarterback, the best running backs. Brock Bowers is a phenomenal tight end. He's the best.
Quite literally the best.
But you're throwing to Lad McConkey. The thing with Georgia is they just outcoach the shit out of everybody. Yeah. They outcoach the crap. These players, they know the system so well. It's like watching. It's really like watching the New England Patriots. They have a great offensive line. Well, maybe not this year. They great offensive line. They run the ball well. They're well coached, and ultimately that's why they just steamroll everybody. Because you look at them talent wise. I mean, they have a lot of 5 stars, but talking about household names, like they don't have a lot of household names besides Brock Bowers.
Yeah.
So
Kenny McIntosh. I guess the average fans probably wouldn't know Kenny McIntosh though.
Yeah, I mean, when you're naming running backs in college football, you're talking about like Jahmyr Gibbs, Bijan Robinson, Blake Corum. Like you're not talking like Kenny McIntosh is probably the literal last guy you probably could think of on that list.
Yeah, but like,
so
where did those teams finish? Those teams didn't win a natty. Georgia did.
Yeah, no. I mean, that's true. That's what it's about. You know, it's not about individual accolades.
Like that's the case nowadays. It's just like you have guys that are just winners and they get it done, as opposed to somebody like Bama who has the best quarterback in the country, but you have nobody around him.
Yeah, you got Bryce Young. You have Bama has more talent than Georgia, but Georgia is better coached than Alabama.
No, I don't know. I don't
more
think that's
disciplined.
Alabama has talent at one position better than anybody in the country. The problem is our receiver talent our tight end talent, our offensive line talent is mediocre. You can't have one player to win it all. I mean, we did it somehow, some way. Last year, won it with 2 or 3 guys on offense.
Despite
Honestly,
Bill O'Brien.
honestly,
Exactly.
even with like our receiver talent being unknown, I still think we probably have better receiver depth than Georgia. Like, Lad McConkey is their like leading receiver, and he's basically like faster Slade Bolden.
It's coaching and development.
I think I propose, right, Alabama and Georgia just like fusion dance, and we give them their players, they give us their coaches. We make like Georgia Bama or something, and we just go and win the next 20 national championships.
The big question of the day that everyone's asking, has Georgia overtaken Alabama as the kings of college football? Obviously, I'm referring to David Pollock's comments that were pretty ballsy at halftime. He sat right next to Nick Saban and basically said that, hey, Georgia's here. They're the new kings of college football. What did you guys think about those comments?
I think it's reactionary. I mean, okay, you won 2 in a row.
I think right now, yes. Like all time, no. But like current top of the thing, I think it's really hard to say that 2-time like back-to-back national champions that lost a combined 1 game over the last 2 years aren't at like the peak of football right now. I'm not saying they're a better dynasty, but I think they have overtaken Alabama right now. Now, next year, do I expect Nick Saban to be pissed about that? Do I expect Alabama to come out with a vengeance? Absolutely. But just like where it stands right now, I feel like you're just coping if you don't think that Georgia is currently better than Alabama. Like I said, again, that's not all time. That's not like.
I mean, I agree with that.
I think that right now, if you're looking at a top dog, it has to be Georgia. Again, no pun intended. I got to stop saying that.
I agree.
I kind of agree, but I mean, you look at like record-wise, like Bama's beaten Georgia 7 out of 8 times they played. They beat them in the SEC championship game last year. Like, I wouldn't say this isn't the first time we've seen something like this. I mean, when LSU beat us and then went on with the national championship, they were going to beat our ass in recruiting. Didn't do that. Clemson was supposed to overtake us as the dynasty. They didn't do that. I mean, we've seen this before. So I'm not ready to put up a statue and say that they're the kings of college football and our dynasty's fallen just because 2 years of them winning the national championship. I mean, that's not to take anything away. That's very impressive. And I'll give Georgia their props. But at the same time, I'm not ready to make big declarations about, them being almighty over Alabama.
I will say, though, the thing like about Clemson, the thing about LSU is they didn't do it back-to-back years. And like I said, I think I was reading some comments and stuff. I was perusing Reddit as I want to do sometimes. And it was before the game, right? And people asked the same question. Does Georgia overtake Alabama if Georgia wins? And the overwhelming answer, and the one that I find myself agreeing with the most, is the conversation should start. But you got to do it another 5-6 years to be a better, to be on a dynasty on the level of Alabama. That's just the facts. Like Nick Saban's been in the national championship, like hunt or in the national championship almost every year for going on 10 plus years.
Yeah,
So,
I mean that's the thing too. It's we were in the national championship game last year. We lost to Georgia, but we were in it. So this year is the only year that we didn't make the playoffs. We didn't play in the national championship. It's not like we've completely missed the playoffs or had
we
7 or 8 seasons
as well. We were literally the next team up, and the final rankings were going to be 2 or 3. So you could do a lot worse than that.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, let's not forget, I mean, Kirby Smart, everything he's brought to Georgia, he learned from Nick Saban in Alabama. So, I mean, we shouldn't be all that surprised they're having a lot of success. But, I mean, also, I knew this is part of the reason I didn't want Georgia to win was because I knew that immediately on SportsCenter the next day they would be having this conversation and it'd be an all-out war between people like Bama fans and people like Stephen A. Smith that just love Alabama. And then you got the Georgia fans and people that naturally want to go against Alabama just because we're the top dog. And it's always funny that even when we're not playing, even when we're not in the conversation, we're always still a part of it because Bama is still the standard. And that's kind of why I think that we're still the quote-unquote kings or whatever.
Yeah, and also, too, like Georgia's won now 2 national championships in the last 30 years, right? Now
40.
40 years. And Alabama
2
has
in 40 years.
6 in the last 10?
Yeah.
13? Like that. When was the first one? 2009?
Yeah, 2009 was the first one.
2009.
Look, 2 in a row is pretty sweet, but
yeah, but
2 in 40
who
years.
else did that?
Alabama.
All right, let's talk about way too early.
Oh yeah, I threw this one in here and I chuckled to myself because mine are going to be interesting. Well,
all right,
a couple of them.
We know yours have Penn State and Oregon in them, but
Penn State, Oregon, Natty, Alabama, 3rd place.
No,
Georgia finishes 0-13.
Exactly.
You guys go. I'll give mine.
I think Bama. I'm going to go Bama, Georgia, USC, and gosh, the 4th one's tough.
Yeah, I know those were my 3 locks as well. That's why I just saw me mouth some.
I think Clemson finally makes it back.
I don't know. Cade Klubnik did not inspire me that much in the Orange Bowl. I'm sure he'll be good with a year of an off season, but he kind of got shut down by Tennessee, who already doesn't have a great defense. I'm with you, Alabama, Georgia. I'm mad because I was hoping you wouldn't say USC because I do think Caleb Williams plays his name into the top prospects of the recent memory. I think that they finally pulled together and make the playoffs this time instead of losing literally last week. He might even beat Utah this time.
Their defense sucks.
I know,
and it's not getting in much better either. Just food.
Is Texas and Oklahoma in the SEC next year?
Mm-hmm.
Or is it the year after?
2025.
25. I'm going to be bold. I'm going to say Texas. I think that Sark is going to pull them together. I think.
Texas?
Yeah, I know. I get it. But
tomato.
I know. I think Quinn Ewers is going to be better than he was, more consistent. Better isn't the problem, right? He was really good at times. They're going to be more consistent. I think that Sark is going to coach his behind off in what might be a do or die year, right? Unless nabbing Arch Manning earned him a couple more years, which I could see.
Well, so who do you think? You think Ewers starts, or do you think Arch starts?
I think Ewers starts this year. Arch starts next year. Unless Ewers struggles, then Arch is one of the only freshmen in the country that I could see getting a spot over Ewers, because Ewers had just as much hype. Ewers was literally a 1,000 rated prospect. He was the 6th or 7th highest rated college prospect of all time or something like that. I saw.
Yeah.
So I think that he has a lot of potential behind him, but I think Arch Manning is maybe the only freshman in the country that would get a chance to start over him if Ewers started to struggle. But that being said, if Ewers starts to struggle, my whole point is moot because Texas is going to be a bad team again.
All right. My 4. Alabama. Oregon. Hold on with the Oregon thing. This is my defense. I think Oregon and USC are very close. I mean, I've been saying they'll make the playoffs and they barely miss it. But Oregon, the difference between Oregon and USC is kind of I just touched on earlier. They're deep. USC's defense isn't very good, whereas Oregon's defense, they landed a lot of solid recruits. They're returning some guys. I think Dan Lanning is going to have that defense ready to go next year. So you got Alabama, Oregon. This isn't really in any particular order too, so I don't know what the rankings would be. Florida State. I know that's kind of a hot one right now. A lot of people are picking them to be. I think in the early rankings right now they're 5 or 6. He's focused. Yeah, honestly, I literally tweeted that this year, and he almost made the Heisman finalist, but it's fine. I'm over it.
Anyway,
Florida State, Mike Norvell did a great job with him this year. I think they won 9 or 10 games. And Jordan Travis is returning. I like him a lot. Defense is kind of like Oregon's in the sense that they've been getting a lot of highly rated recruits. And then
Jared Verse is coming back too.
Who?
Jared Verse.
Oh, yeah. So I did see that yesterday.
He was like a first-round projected pick.
Yeah, he was probably the second or third edge rusher. So that's huge for them. So Oregon, Alabama, Florida State, and then just a big shocker who the last team is going to be, Penn State.
All right, Clark, you were right. He did he included them both.
No, but Penn State with Drew Aller, 5-star quarterback, you're returning 2 freshman running backs that both rushed for over 1,000 yards individually and I think one had 9 touchdowns, the other had like 11 or 12 or something. So, offensively with a 5-star quarterback and 2, Clark, am I boring you?
Yes, you are. You were
stud quarterback, 2 stud running backs, all young guys, returning. I think the top-rated offensive tackle decided he was coming back for whatever reason. Other great offensive linemen, great defense. Manny Diaz, who I shat on early in the year, really did a good job coaching those guys up towards the end.
Yeah, it seems like every player you talk shit about or every player or coach you talk shit about manages to wind up doing very good in the end. So keep it up.
Maybe that's a tactic.
Maybe Pete Golding will be really good next year.
I'll make a graphic of everybody's 4 teams so that I can get shit on.
Yeah, because I can get the Oregon. But Penn State, okay. Anyway, so yeah,
Clemson favors the bull.
Anyway, so good news for Bama. Obviously we all know Bryce Young, Will Anderson, Brian Branch, Jameer Gibbs, Henry To'oTo'o, Eli Ricks, all declaring. No surprise there, but we're also losing Jordan Battle. That's going to be a tough loss. DeMarco Hellum's not so much of a tough loss in my opinion. Obviously, we're no surprise losing them. No, it is what it is. Will Reichert's coming back, though. How big is that going to be?
I think it's huge, especially we all have nightmares about Alabama kickers that we've had before Will Reichert. So somebody like Reichert, I think he had 84% field goal make the season. So, that's a little bit down, I think, from not last year, the year before. But he's still one of the best kickers in college football. So a lot of people would probably think we're crazy that we're talking about how excited we are about the kicker coming back. But I do think bad experience at a position that has been awful in the past is very important to have. So I'm glad that he's come back. And then as far as some of these guys leaving, Bryce Young, Will Anderson, Gibbs, and Branch obviously stinks that they're leaving. I was hoping that Eli Ricks would come back. If I had a gun to my head and had to guess, I really did think he was going to come back because I thought that he didn't play much this year until the very end of the season. So I thought he was going to come back as a starter and kind of he had the chance to cement his name next year for maybe a first or second round pick. But who knows? I'm sure he'll get drafted. Brian Branch too. That's a tough one. That was a guy that I also thought would come back. And then I kind of looked at the rest of these guys. My thoughts on Henry To'oTo'o. Not a big Henry To'oTo'o guy. And then DeMarco Hellums and Jordan Battle, also not too fond of them. This is going to kind of be a bold take, and I'm sure that it might sound a little bit crazy, but I just feel like our defense will be better next year. And I specifically look at our secondary, which I feel like our secondary has been god-awful. I won't say god-awful. Our secondary has been pretty rough to watch the last 2 or 3 seasons. But I think obviously you got Dallas Turner coming back. He's a stud. You got Kool-Aid McKinstry. Some of these other guys.
Moore's coming back.
What'd you say?
Malachi Moore's coming back.
Yeah, Malachi Moore. I think our defense will be better next year. What do you guys think about that?
I think there's a couple of young players and even true freshmen that might get some play time as well. Like, I think it'll be really hard by the end of the year to keep Caleb Downs off the field. I think he's probably the one I'm most excited for out of any.
He starts immediately.
I don't know if he starts immediately, but I think by our bye week he'll probably be starting. And then same with, I'm just completely mentally blanking, our defensive end that we're getting. It's like the top defensive end in the country.
Keon Keeley.
Yeah.
I think we'll have a very young team, but I think overall this defense is going to surprise a lot of people. I think our secondary is going to be one of the best secondaries in the country. I think Earl Little Jr. too is going to be. I mean, all these guys are going to be studs in the secondary. It seems like Helms and Battle were there for like 8 years. They're like, but experience is huge too. I don't want to undercut experience and how important that is, but from a pure talent standpoint and what I've seen so far from these guys that are going to be getting a lot of snaps in 2023, I'm very hopeful.
Well, another thing too is like I saw a lot of people talking about the other corner opposite of Kool-Aid, right? And a lot of people automatically assumed it's Terry and Arnold. And then you basically have like the Terry and Arnold and the Earl Little Jr. camps. I think, honestly, what we might do and what, in my humble opinion, he'd probably be better suited for is if we move like Terry and Arnold to kind of like a hybrid safety, almost like the Malachi Moore role, right? The star role where he's like a slot corner / sometimes safety. I think he'd excel at that because like he came in as safety. I think he's a little undersized to be a corner. Like you saw it this year, we played Texas A&M. Evan Stewart was just, they threw the ball high in the air and Evan Stewart would catch everything over him. So I think that having like Earl Little or someone like that and then moving him to like a hybrid, kind of more versatile, move him around. He can play man if you need him to. Whatever.
Yeah, and when Ricks announced that he was leaving, saw Earl Little tweet, I'm next up or I'm ready, something along those lines. So
yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but is he not? He's from the same high school that Surtain is from?
Yeah.
I don't know.
American Heritage, I think, is the name of the school. Not that it doesn't really matter, but I think that's a guy that's got a lot of confidence and per usual, very highly rated recruit.
Yeah. Yeah.
As far as coordinators go, not much is really going on. I'm kind of starting to lean that we keep O'Brien and Golding, but today was
Bill O'Brien's contract doesn't expire after National Signing Day, so you don't want to fire him and him go somewhere else and flip a recruit or him cost us a recruit until after National Signing Day is here. So let him.
Yeah, but this National Signing Day isn't really National Signing Day anymore.
I mean, it is in the terms of once you're signed, you can't just like you have to go through the portal and all. So, I mean, like I get the decision of keeping. I mean, I don't like it, but I mean, you keep him around until his contract expires. And then once, I mean, he is a good recruiter. So, I mean, I think you let him bring in who he's going to bring in and make the decision after that.
Well, and also, like you a lot of his interest was reported to be NFL interest. And teams are just like starting there. Yeah. I think like this morning was like the first time I saw people reported to like.
Yeah, it seems like it's gone on forever just because we didn't make the playoffs, and so we've had things to sit around and complain about. But today is the first day that like kind of like the new season national championship was last night, and then like you said, NFL Black Monday was yesterday. So it's kind of a game of chicken. You gotta have to wait and see like who's gonna interview for this job. And I mean, we did see Cliff Kingsbury got fired. I don't know if he would come to Alabama to be the OC. Kind of seems like a bit of a pipe dream, but definitely in the conversation as far as the fans go. But who knows if that's actually a thing or if it's just something we all would like to see.
I think it's just extremely wishful thinking because, like, you look at Matt Rule, right, who had a worse tenure with the Panthers than Cliff Kingsbury did with the Cardinals. And he immediately, like 2 days after getting fired, got Nebraska, which is a pretty high-profile job. like as a head coach. So I think if Cliff Kingsbury, the only way he becomes Alabama's offensive coordinator is if he specifically is like, I'm done head coaching, but I want to keep coaching. Because he would very easily be able to get a head coaching job.
So going on, we talked a lot about football. So going on to basketball, because we are way over our usual time. Anyway, so
Got
Bama
a date or
basketball.
something with the girl you kissed on New Year's? Just messing.
Take me
Didn't say
back
no.
to New Orleans. That was a hell of a weekend. Would love to do
bet.
all that again.
You remember it?
Yes, I remember the best parts.
I bet.
Don't remember everything, but
Anyway. Good Lord.
man had a whole 2
Alabama
shots.
basketball, number 4 in the country. I just lost my train of thought. Where were we going?
Basketball. We're going to
Alabama.
Coleman Coliseum, baby. That's where we're
Take
going.
us there.
Coming off of a dominating win against a very bad Kentucky team who is getting beat by South Carolina now by 8. But
this
hey,
might be
I
the
mean,
worst Kentucky team I think I've seen since I started following.
yeah, I agree. I think Cal's gone, regardless, either fired or to Texas. I don't think Cal is going to be
I
back.
saw so many people talking about Nate Oates being on Kentucky's short list, and I really hope we just give him like a $1 billion extension so that he stays.
Bama's going to have to step up. Anyway,
What would be the
at
point of him
Arkansas tomorrow
leaving?
night, Bama has not do it.
Like
What?
it's one of those things where you go from a program you built, but like it's a step from like Arkansas to Alabama, right? Except in
He's
the college
literally
basketball.
royalty in Tuscaloosa right
And
now.
he'll be royalty on a basketball school if he goes to Kentucky. Like I mean I get it. I don't think he should, obviously.
I don't think he will. He doesn't strike me as that type of guy. And
Um,
I don't think they'd let him leave.
at Arkansas tomorrow night. Arkansas has had our number in Bud Walton lately. Do I expect to win tomorrow? Yes, but I also would not be disappointed per se in losing. I mean, disappointed, yes, but it's not like one of those games where you go in and expect to win. But Arkansas is without 3 of their best players for injuries. Bama can win this game. This will be a huge win to be able to go on the road. We've already seen they can go on the road at number 1 Houston and get the win. And I think tomorrow night's going to be a tough test. Arkansas on the road is much tougher than Houston. I don't care that Houston's number 1. But yeah,
Houston
tomorrow
wins looking better and better every week.
Yeah,
too.
it is.
They've just been-
definitely. But man, Brandon Miller, like he's going to be the 2nd overall pick in the draft. Like
No chance. Zero
Yes.
chance. No, I love Brandon Miller.
No,
Victor Wembanyama and
100%.
Scoot Henderson are locked in at 1 and 2.
he
I'm
will
just
be
saying.
at the worst the 3rd pick.
I think at the best, the 3rd pick, unfortunately. Anyway, I love
No.
Brandon Miller.
No, I
It's
mean-
just Victor Wembanyama is absolutely going number 1 no matter what. And Scoot Henderson is like insanely like maybe because you don't follow like NBA basketball as much because he plays in the G League right now on the G League Ignite. But he's been pretty much locked into the number 2 pick from.
But I
would
will
love
say-
Brandon Miller.
I will say in Clark's defense, if Brandon Miller continues doing what he's doing, and let's say we make a deep playoff run, kind of have the
Tournament?
recency or tournament run. You kind of have the recency bias with Brandon Miller, so maybe he gets that 2 spot. But I agree with you; he won't be the number 1 pick. But yeah, he's been balling. It's refreshing to see a highly rated guy who will be an NBA pick actually do things because J.D. Davidson last season, I won't say was a disappointment, but because he showed some good things, but I think we can all agree that he didn't quite live up to our expectations. So watching Brandon Miller ball out, it's kind of fun for us to have like our own player that we know will be gone after this year, but is immediately impacting this team.
Yeah, and honestly, I think there's 3 true freshmen that all have like a decent shot at getting drafted, right? I mean, obviously you have Miller, Nick Pringle, or sorry, not Nick Pringle. What am I talking about? Where'd he go? Was it Nick Pringle that I was looking at? No, sorry, Noah Clowney.
Love me some Noah Clowney.
Freaking mush. But anyway, yeah, no, he's kind of like the prototypical NBA power forward, right? Where he can big, but he can also space the floor. He's athletic. And I also really like, he'll probably come back for 1 more year if I had to guess. But I could see Jaden Bradley being like the Josh Primo this year, where he like does well at workouts and ends up going to the draft and goes higher than any of us think he's going to.
Same with like Mark Sears. Like Mark Sears has been the best transfer we could have asked for. Like Mark Sears has been, I think, this top 3 player on the team, especially with his shooting. I mean, I think this whole team, there's a good chance a lot of these guys go. It's going to depend on like who wants to come back and be like the face of the team next year.
Right.
It'd be the veteran leadership. But I think we're also turning into that team like, taking Kentucky aside, they can't win for shit right now. But we're becoming the like teams like Duke, North Carolina, Kansas, who have guys who are going to come in and play 1 year and go. But we're going to keep replacing them with guys of their caliber. But I think we're turning into a one and done school very quickly.
Yeah, like Mark Sears is probably gone. Namari Burnett, depending on how he finishes out the year with injury, I could see him being.
He'll be back at the end of January possibly, so that would be huge.
So, and then Charles Bediako, depending on, I think Bediako tests the waters, sees the feedback, and if he doesn't get good feedback, will come back. And it's hard to say.
He had a hell of a game this weekend.
Right, and it's really hard to say.
Shut down Sheway. Yeah,
it's really hard to say what the feedback for him will be because I know shooting is at such a premium and he can't make free throws, but he's so athletic and like he has the size you want. But I thought it was really interesting. Nate Oates has some pretty big cojones to make the offensive game plan literally hunt down the national player of the year on offense and just like throw lobs at him all day.
And it worked. Like we were getting the ball inside very well. We were working the dribble drive almost to perfection against the coach who basically created the dribble drive. But I mean, I think this
basketball before Coach Cal.
Do what?
He invented the forward pass.
Yeah, totally. But I mean, you've got to give credit to like this team. They're just, we kind of put an end to Joe's. Oh, not to just Joe's, but to everyone's whole live and die by the 3 thing. Like we're doing a good job of getting the ball inside and scoring from anywhere, and got to give the team credit. I mean, if this team will limit turnovers, 7 turnovers on Saturday, 7.
I would like to give credit to one Jawan Quinterly.
About time.
Javon, I blanked.
Well, you also said credit, so I thought you were doing a bit.
No, my brain is fried too, like yours. I like to give credit to Javon Quinterly because obviously I've been known to say some things about him, but the last 2 games he's played well. Hoping he continues, builds on that momentum. Obviously, he's just starting to get healthy, kind of getting his swagger back. So he's played really well, and so I'm very, very happy about that.
Yeah, talking on the bottom, we have a tag with our social media. You can also find Joe anytime you see someone talking about that guy that hates Javon Quinterly on Twitter. You'll know exactly who they're talking about, right?
They never directly say it's me, but I know they're talking about me.
Yeah, but I mean, I agree. I've
for good reason.
I've been less outspoken than Joe, but I have had my gripes with Javon Quinterly, and I think that
Tyler and I gripe privately, but I gripe also.
We don't have the
Twitter.
exact same gripes, right? Mine is that he's good, but he takes some bad shots at times. But I think the biggest difference is that he's like making the shots now. And that was always the problem, right? Is like players like that. I liken him too, and this might be a really stupid take, whatever, I don't care. I likened him to a more skilled John Petty, where when he's taking the shots he takes and they're going down, it's like, wow, he's a flamethrower. He's absolutely like the best player on the court. And when he's missing them, you're like, oh, God, please stop shooting, please. But I think that he's been, and he's been a lot better. And I think one thing, too, is how much of it is, he's finally healthy. He's finally back from injury.
Well, I think, too, he's realizing he's coming to grips with the fact that, yes, he can make crazy shots and do the little jelly layups and all that stuff. But his role on this team, in my opinion, is to be a ball distributor and be a guy who, has a lot of experience and just helps the younger guys. And that's not to say he shouldn't shoot the ball, but I think he's starting to realize that, hey, I don't have to play hero ball. I have all these other talented guys around me. I just need to find creative ways to get them the ball so that they can do what they do best.
He's shooting 33% from 3 this year, which is, it's respectable. And also, like I said, a couple of those games he came back, he still wasn't 100% healthy. I think that's my big gripe though. Is like last year and his freshman year, he was a sub 30% 3-point shooter, shooting like Steph Curry, and that's when it draws my ire. But you know.
All right, that's all I got. You guys got anything else?
That's it.
We'll try and actually have consistently do once a week shows since we're probably the most inconsistent group out there. But
we're as inconsistent as Joe's Commanders and Kirk Cousins.
All right, that's
14-3 Kirk Cousins. Thank you very much.
That's a low blow.
Gonna call. Hang on, I'm just gonna call it. I'm gonna. I could not get my words to come out. Goodness.
We're all stroking out tonight. Bad.
I could not get my words out.
All right.
Two upsets this week in the NFL. Bucks over Cowboys and Giants over Vikings.
Giants over Vikings is really stupid because we already hosted them and won. But anyway.
Okay, you won one time by 3 points on a 60th.
All right. Thank you all for watching. Have a good night.